Democracy. What is the definition? Well, why don't we go to the Congress when they're in the middle of a session and you listen to democracy? Each one is allowed to have their opinion and they shout at each other. Democracy, beautiful. That's not democracy. Democracy is supposed to be listening to one another, to pay attention to what each one has to say. Maybe if they say something I don't know, I'm going to get inspired, change my mind. Did you ever see someone from the right say to someone from the left, "Oh my God, you are so enlightening that I'm changing my mind, I'm going to your side," and vice versa? It never happens. People talk, but others are not listening. I would like to introduce to you something interesting that has to do with the date of the 10th of Tevet. Of course, the 10th of Tevet is known to be the beginning of what will end up with the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash, when Nebuchadnezzar and his army siege around Jerusalem and ends up with the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash. Now, we all know that the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash happens because Bnei Israel have fights between each other. This is clear historically, that every time we had problems in the Klal Israel, there were fights and there were problems between people. Fighting with the enemy, we don't have a problem. Fighting with one another is terrible. And this brought the Churban Beit HaMikdash with us. So it seems that when we fast, Asara B'Tevet, Shiva Asar B'Tammuz, Tisha B'Av, all the fasts that have to do with the destruction of the temple have to do with the unity of the Klal Yisrael. That's what we think about. But there is a very interesting Shulchan Aruch. The Shulchan Aruch, in Orach Chaim, Siman Taf Kufpe, 580. He brings several dates that people should fast, that are not obligatory fasts. Over there he says something interesting. B'Shmona B'Tevet, on the 8th of Tevet, Nichteva HaTorah Yevanit. The Torah was translated in Greek. Bimet Talmai HaMelech, during the days where Talmai was the king of the Greeks. And what happened as a result of that, which if you would know, probably the Beraita from Megillat Ta'anit that tells us that 70 sages were summoned by this king, and they all wrote the translation of the Torah from Hebrew to Greek. And they all matched. It was a great miracle that 70 versions of the Torah were the same. But instead of being a celebration, the Shulchan Aruch, who quotes the Beraita in Megillat Ta'anit, says, "V'haya choshech ba'olam shelosha yamim." There was darkness in the world 3 days, the 8th, the 9th, and the 10th of Tevet. 3 days of darkness, as if it would be a punishment for what had happened. Culminating with the 10th of Tevet, which means that the 10th of Tevet has two things: the beginning of the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash, and the third day of this darkness that God miraculously brought to the world as a result of the translation of the Torah. What is so wrong with the translation of the Torah that God got so upset? I'll tell you what is so wrong with the translation of the Torah. I'll give you an example. In this week's parasha, Parashat Vayigash. What is the term Vayigash? The simple term Vayigash, Hagasha lemilchama. It means that Yehuda came to Yosef with the intent of attacking. He had enough of the blah blah and all the conversations he had and all these negotiations that led nowhere. At one point, say, you know what? He got to attack and he went ready for war. But Vayigash also means to pray. He prayed to who? To God. So you see, one word in Hebrew could mean several things. If you translate, you're going to have to pick one. You cannot pick both. What you do at this point is that you're taking all the possibilities of the richness of the Torah, what we call the Shiv'im Panim La Torah, the 70 different interpretations of the Torah, and you have to channel them into one. You're going to have to eliminate 69 in order to cherish one. Now that is beautiful for that one, but it's a waste of the other 69. And the richness of the Torah could only be explored if you do not translate it. Because if you translate it, you lock it into one interpretation and you waste the other 69. The Chachamim saw in there something terrible, locking the Torah into one. As if it would be unity, because you're bringing all the possibilities and you're making them one. 70 Chachamim who thought of one interpretation. Well, that kind of unity is not good either. So you have the 10th of Tevet pinpointing the disunity, or if you want, the division between the people that brought the temple to be destroyed. And you have the 10th of Tevet that brought a crazy unity to bring everybody together into one interpretation of the Torah. And both are not good. And we fast for both. Which means that we have to go in the middle. See, on the 7th of October, we got attacked. There isn't one Jew in the world who didn't make the connection with what was happening to the Jews before that. I remember throughout the summer when they were talking about civil war in Israel. People were fighting to one another. Many people in my community came to me and said, Rabbi, this doesn't smell good. Something is going to happen. Because every time historically that there was things like this, similar to this, bad things happen. When we can't tolerate each other, we can't respect each other, bad things happen. Sure enough, bad things happen. Now, it's the opposite. You go to Israel, everybody's united. The whole Klal said, we're all together, we're all fighting together, and it's beautiful. But we have to learn what is real unity in democracy. It's not translating the Torah in one language, and it's definitely not giving the back to one another. It's somewhere in the middle. And you know what it is? It's respecting each other's differences. We're not supposed to think alike. It's okay. We have to think differently. Every page of Gemara is full of discussions. Every time you ask a rabbi a question, he's going to tell you, ooh, it's a machloket, it's a discussion. Everything is up for a discussion. We are the number one people who vote for democracy. We're allowed to have difference of opinions. But we have to learn that not because we have difference of opinion, it means that we're not united. We have to learn how to be united, respectful, while disagreeing. And that's Asara B'Tevet. You take both extremes. The disagreements to the point of fight, and the unity to the point of having only one voice, and both are wrong. We need to be in the middle. We're all different, and we're supposed to think different and to hold different views. But we have to know how to do that respectfully. That's our message for Asara B'Tevet.